Hi, welcome to the PhoneArena video review of the Nokia N8, the latest flagship handset from the Finnish mobile giant. A real multimedia powerhouse, the N8 has a 12.1 megapixel camera on the back with a Xenon flash, HD video recording at 25 frames per second, and an HDMI output. It also sports a 3.5-inch AMOLED screen with a resolution of 360 by 640 pixels. So, does the N8 live up to all the hype? Well, let's find out. Design-wise, the N8 feels extremely solid. Constructed from a single piece of anodised aluminium, there's a good weighting behind it, and it feels cold to the touch when you pick it up, just like metal should. As the body is mainly matted, the screen, with a high gloss finish, provides a nice contrast. The flat top and bottom edge we were dubious about at first, however we've come to really like. They really help when picking up the handset, as it gives you something more solid to grip than the curved edges along the sides. The screen itself comes in at 3.5 inches with a resolution of 360 by 640 pixels. It's also AMOLED, so the colors are really vibrant and pop, and pixel density is good. Viewing angles are also good, and if anything lets the screen down, it's just how glossy it is. In direct sun, it's not going to be easy to watch movies on, however it's still perfectly usable. Physical features of the phone include a 3.5mm headphone jack at the top, as well as an HDMI port located under a flap mini HDMI port, with a mini HDMI to HDMI converter in the box, and a power button on the top left. On the right hand side of the phone is a volume rocker, a locking slider, and a 2-stage camera button. On the left hand side of the N8 is a micro SD card slot and a SIM card slot, both located under flaps which are really nicely flush with the side of the phone. And finally is a micro USB port, which remains open. At the bottom of the N8 is a 2mm Nokia charging port. The front of the phone only really has one hardware button, and that's the menu button. As you can see, when pressed once, it brings you to the menu, and when pressed for a long hold, it takes you to the task manager. The back of the phone has a 12 megapixel camera with a Carl Zeiss lens. It's got an aperture of 2.8 and a wide angle of 28mm, so that means you're going to get some nice depth of field when you're doing macro stuff with a good background behind you. It's also got a Xenon flash, so Nokia is saying that this could double up as a compact camera replacement. Let's find out if it does a little bit later on. Below the camera module, you'll also find the loudspeaker. Overall, we really like the feel of the Nokia N8. It hasn't got a removable battery, so Nokia could really make the finish that bit more refined, and they have. Feeling solid and dense, it's going to do the job and feel secure in the process. Symbian 3 is supposed to be the next Series 60 version 5. Really just looks like a bit of a reskin. Sure, there are some changes, such as a button to switch between menus, and a much smoother operation throughout, without any single double-click confusion. However, ultimately it just doesn't feel different enough, or more to the point, look different enough to really compete in today's marketplace of OSs. Nevertheless, let's take a closer look at it. As you can see, the home screen is divided into widgets, 3 home screens, each with 6 widgets. You can add or remove a widget by long holding down to remove, and adding by tapping the plus button. You can remove an entire home screen by pressing Options and Remove Home Screen, limiting your home screens to as few as 1 and as many as 3. Press the call button and you'll pull up the dialer, which has optional haptic feedback. The menu button on the bottom left can be tapped once to pull up the menu and held down to pull up a task manager. As you can see, again, the menu looks extremely similar to Series 60 version 5. The calendar is extremely usable with nice finger-friendly sized dates and a simple method of switching between the view. Contacts are as would be expected, with a little bit more integration for social networking, and Music Player works a treat. The reason we're so happy about the Music Player in particular is because it actually has been rethought through. Once you click in on Music Player, you're taken straight to albums and artists. This saves you the step of having to wade through what's now in the Options tab of Now Playing, Songs, Playlists, Genres and Podcasts. When you flip the phone into landscape orientation, you're presented with a really smooth cover flow. And when back in Portrait, a list. Once you select an album, you've got a really great idea. Cover flow at the top, list at the bottom. This makes one-handed scrolling through your music a real pleasure. Audio output is really good through the 3.5mm headphone jack on board, especially when you plug in your own headphones, if they're any good. However, the loudspeaker on the back is a little bit tinny and not too comfortable for prolonged use. Taking a look at the photo viewer, everything loads up extremely quickly. As these photos were taken on this 12-megapixel camera, we're really impressed by this. Tapping on a photo, you can pinch to zoom to get really close in on your photo, and it takes a second to refresh the quality. Having said that, there's absolutely no lag. So we're really happy that it makes the N8 so usable as a photo viewer and sharer. Photos can be edited in ways such as red eye reduction and cropping, and these can be looked into further in the written review on PhoneArena.com. Messaging is very standard, with conversation view, opening a new message being very similar to Symbian Series 60 version 5, and your standard inbox view. One thing to note is the keyboard layout. It's much improved. With the keyboard only taking half the screen, you have an entire half of the screen for messaging. This is really great when, with the Symbian Series 60 version 5 browser, you just had a little square at the top for the actual message. There is also a left and a right arrow at the bottom, which makes the keyboard much more usable. When flipped into landscape orientation, the keyboard is, once again, revamped slightly. Extremely usable, with a great deal more space for the actual message and a lot of superfluous icons taken away. The video player is also great. We were thoroughly impressed with the amount of codec support on the Nokia N8. As you can see by this 720 clip I'm about to play, it just works seamlessly.
It's okay, buddy. I'm not gonna let this human hurt you.
Here we have the missing link, a 20,000-year-old fish man.
Papa's a little out of shape.
The other great thing about having all this additional codec support is that the N8 outputs through its HDMI directly to an HD TV. This is really great, as the N8 can in turn double up as a multimedia hub that you can just take around with you and plug in, viewing movies on the go. When not doing that, the screen works extremely well to display the movies itself, so it really is a multimedia solution for all occasions. OV Maps works very well, and the GPS is found extremely quickly, which we're glad to say. And again, the OV Store will work as expected. An area which was a little bit lacking was applications. While you have your standard Office applications like Quick Office and a file manager with a dictionary and Adobe PDF, there's nothing of added functionality. There are also no games, for example. So any will have to be downloaded from the OV Store. And as far as social networking goes, you only have support for Facebook and Twitter, with things like the YouTube app on board only being a link to the YouTube website. Press the camera button and you're taken to the camera module. As you can see, there's a zoom toggle on the left-hand side, and options on the bottom left, which allows you to control various things such as save location, image quality. Images can be shot at 9 megapixels widescreen, 12 megapixels 4:3 aspect ratio, 3 megapixels, 1.3 megapixels and 0.3 megapixels. There's also save location options, as well as auto rotate, capture tone, etc. Click the spanner and you have a range of modes you can choose from, such as scene mode. That includes automatic, macro, landscape, sports, etc. But the really cool one is a user-defined one. You can actually make a few adjustments by editing various things such as exposure compensation, color tone, light sensitivity, sharpness, etc. and have them saved in your user-defined mode. We tended to use macro and automatic predominantly, however the night portrait also worked very well, as you can see from the samples. Face detection can be toggled on and off, as can a grid that overlays the viewfinder. Self-timer comes in a few options, as does color tone, white balance, exposure compensation, light sensitivity, contrast, sharpness, and finally a link to your photo gallery. Flash options include automatic, red eye reduction, on and off. Press the video camera button in the top left hand side and you're taken to the video camera module. Again, a very similar interface with a digital zoom on the left hand side, as well as options dictating the video size, which can be high definition, standard definition or 3GP, and a spanner which has quite a few less options, white balance, color tone and photos, as well as scene modes. The scene modes for video were pretty good if you're keeping your camera dead still in, for example, night mode. However, with any moving, as the shutter speed is slightly slower, it might be worth just keeping it in automatic mode, as it caused a lot of blurring, as you'll see in the samples. The only other thing we can say about the camera module is that it lacks light metering control. This isn't too big a deal necessarily, however, just thought you might like to know. To demonstrate the power of the N8's camera, we thought we'd run you through a quick macro shot. Press the spanner button, choose the scene mode, press close up, and you have your options here. Why not go for vivid colours, seeing as we've got such a popping background? There you go. And exit. Now we can switch the flash off as we're going to take a macro shot. Bring the object closer and take the shot. As you can see, it was all very quick to fire and quick to get set up. Now we can zoom in on the picture to our heart's content and give it a second to reload, and you can see you've got a great quality macro shot, which is something a lot of phones struggle with. You've also got good colouring in the background, and everything just looks extremely nice.